welcome to Chaotic Riff Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriff.com. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking with Kevin Jones, the lead singer from the band Stepchild. How you doing today, Kevin?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jason.
And where is the band based out of?
We're out of Laguna Beach, California.
Oh, wow. That's not too far from where I live. I'm out of Long Beach. Very interesting. So, your publicist, Christina, I got to give her a huge shout out and thank you because for helping to set up the interview. She's really great at what she does, but in doing so, you contacted me, Kevin, to arrange the interview, and you sent me some of your songs last night to kind of check out, and we're going to be talking about some of these songs. So I want to first start off by talking about the song "Evening Falls." To me,
real quick, Jason. Christina Avila, the queen of rock and roll promotion on the East Coast. She's absolutely amazing. So I want to thank Christina Avila right off the bat for hooking me up with this interview with you, and she's gotten me a bunch of interviews and doing great promotion for Stepchild and for my other things that I'm involved with, my other bands, my other solo projects, etc.
Wow.
And so I want to give a big, huge shout out to Christina Avila. She's absolutely amazing, and she's doing a great job for Stepchild and for everything that I'm involved with. She's involved with. So thanks, Christina.
Yeah, and I just I'll add to that. Anybody needs a promoter, Christina is the one.
No, she's all mine. She's all mine.
Yeah, she's just great at what she does. I mean, I'm always online, and I'm seeing everything she's posting about all the bands she works with. So high praise for what she does. But
she's doing great.
Yeah. So let's get in and talk about your music today. Now, you sent me an email with some of your songs, and the first one we're going to talk about is "Evening Falls." To me, I don't know if I'd even call this a power ballad, but I more describe it as I'd call it an epic ballad. It's just got that epic sound. So great song. Talk about that one.
Evening Falls is off my solo album that I recorded some years back, and I started the album in Seattle at Ironwood Recording Studios in Seattle. I paid a pretty penny to record about 9 or 10 songs, and Ironwood Studios in Seattle is where the Presidents of the United States of America, Soundgarden, Mother Love Bone, Pearl Jam, a lot of the Seattle bands did tracks and albums and demos there.
Wow.
And then I brought the album back home and moved back to California. I was living in Seattle for a year, and I moved back to California, and I ended up I ended up wanting to redo some vocal parts. I went into a studio by the name of a guy named Dave DeBeth that we just lost.
Oh, wow.
Dave passed away August 16th of this year. And when I went into his studio to redo a couple vocal tracks, the vocals that he was pulling off, the sound and the quality of the vocals was so killer that I ended up redoing the whole album at his studio. He ended up re-engineering the album, Hope Has Its Reasons, and reproducing it.
Oh, wow.
And so the song Evening Falls, I'm really proud of the song. I think it's an amazing song.
Yeah.
It is a little long, but I wasn't trying to have a hit on the radio.
Yeah.
I was just trying to have it be artistic and write it from my heart. And so Evening Falls is one of my favorite songs on my solo album, which is called Hope Has Its Reasons. And it's got cello on it. I found a cello player up in Seattle.
Wow. The
cello player was absolutely amazing, a fretless bass player. And I did all the guitars and all the vocals on the album, all the backups on the album as well. And it's kind of my pride and joy because I've done 11 albums, but in most of the bands that I'm in the majority of them, I'm usually just the frontman singer.
Wow.
And a co-writer and writing songs together with other people. But with the solo album, I wrote all the songs and co-produced it and did all the guitar work and all the vocal work. And so I'm super proud of it.
And here's a question for you, Dave. I'm sorry, Kevin. Let me ask you in regards to recording in Seattle. What was that like?
Well, I had an opportunity and some offerings up there. And I've lived in California my whole life, and I went up there, and it ended up that, you know how it's notorious for being cold and rainy.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
The year that I was there, it was the worst. They had the biggest rainfall that they've had in like 30 years there. It freaking poured almost every day.
You brought it with you, man.
Yeah, man, I brought the rain, bro.
From California.
So it was pretty crazy because I just didn't like it. I live down Laguna Beach.
Oh, you're right.
I've got this beautiful apartment down Laguna Beach, and I'm looking at the ocean as we speak right now. I'm about 50 steps away from Main Beach. And I'm watching the waves crash on the beaches, as we're speaking right now. And the thing is to be a California boy and live here my whole life in the beautiful beach, sunshine and the blue skies, I just really didn't dig it. So the flip side of the coin is that there's a place called Pioneer Square in Seattle.
Oh wow!
That has about 20 clubs, and you can go and sign up. I was signing up for like open mic nights and jam sessions, and I was jamming jazz and blues and metal and rock and everything under the sun up there. And it does have an amazing music scene. So I did have a lot of fun recording up there. I met a lot of great musicians. I played with a lot of great musicians, and my favorite thing up in Seattle was Pioneer Square, going and playing at open mic nights.
Oh, that's cool. Now, you talked about playing the guitar on the solo album, and I was curious if a lot of guys, did you start out playing the guitar and kind of become a singer out of necessity, and that you were the guy writing the songs and you couldn't imagine anybody else kind of singing your songs?
I actually started out singing first.
Oh, wow.
I grew up in Anaheim, California, about a couple miles away from Disneyland, and my mom and dad were both in the choir.
Oh, wow.
And I grew up going to a Lutheran school called Grace Lutheran School. As a little kid, I went to preschool and then kindergarten through third grade at Grace Lutheran. And so when I was like 5 or 6 years old, people would come up to my parents, and I remember actually, like it was yesterday, there's something in my memory that it's a moment that I'll never forget. But there was these people that were new to our church that I hadn't really seen around, and they were kind of staring at me, and a couple Sundays in a row, and with this kind of puzzled look on their face, and I didn't really know why, So they came up to my parents. I was probably 6 years old, something like that, and they're like, excuse me, hey, we're new to the church here, and we wanted to ask you a question. Your little boy, we've noticed, how does your little boy know we've noticed that he knows all the words to all the songs. He doesn't look at the hymn book, and we've watched him Sunday after Sunday, and he just seems to know all the words to all these songs. And I had memorized all these songs, and I would stand there singing for the Lord from the bottom of my heart with my eyes closed, singing at the top of my lungs when I was 6 years old. And then the flip side of that with your question as far as the guitar is that my parents' best friends at that church were the Bakers, and one of the Baker boys had a guitar.
Oh, wow.
We would always go to the Baker's house after church, and I was 6 years old, whatever, and I would bolt right into their house when we arrived after church. We went there pretty much every Sunday. I would go right into their front door, right down the hallway, right into the bedroom to the back, and underneath the bed was this guitar case, and I would pull it out and open it up, and I was too small to actually get the guitar out of the case, but I would just sit there with it in the case, and I would just sit there and flick the strings. And so I was already absolutely in love with singing when I was born, and I was absolutely in love with guitar when I was a little kid. So they both went hand in hand with me in my life from when I was a little kid.
So as far as the guitar, did you ever take lessons? Do you consider yourself more of a self-taught player?
I'm an absolutely, completely self-taught player, and I was in a band when I was 12 years old with a couple of guys, and I'm actually still friends with most of them. Wow. One of the guys we kind of lost touch with, but one of the guys that I have a new band I'm putting together called Metal Machine.
Okay.
And Metal Machine is coming out, and we're going to be doing, I think it's safe to say we're probably going to be doing covers. We'll probably write a couple original songs. I'm not a cover guy because I play my own music and write my own music. But a guy that I was in the band with when I was 13 years old named Tris Mahaffey, then he makes Mahaffey guitar amps. Him and I are starting this new band called Metal Machine, and he's a monster guitar player. He makes a killer guitar amp, Mahaffey Amps, MAHAFFAY amps.com.
Okay.
And so him and I are starting a new project together, and I was working with him when I was 13 years old.
That's amazing, and you know you're in good company because I think a lot of people would be amazed to learn that Eddie Van Halen, who everybody considers like a guitar god, I mean, he could not read a lick of music, but yet look at what he was able to do with that guitar.
Yeah, absolutely, and one of the things about I actually got to jam with him one time.
Oh wow!
Very shortly, very briefly. It was actually for about 2 minutes, and it was at a NAMM show. The NAMM show. Are you familiar with the National Association of Music Merchants?
Oh yeah, I know they used to have that every winter and summer for like guitar companies and amps and stuff like that for musicians to come try out their new equipment.
Yeah, I got to jam with him just for a couple of minutes at a Seymour Duncan guitar pickup booth and meet him.
Wow.
I actually had a couple run-ins with him, but one of the things that about Eddie that a lot of people don't know is that he started on piano.
Oh yeah, I heard that.
When he was a little kid, he was going and his parents had him in for lack of a better term, almost like a piano competition. You know?
Yeah.
So he would go compete against all the other kids, playing Bach and Mozart and et cetera, and they were all reading sheet music, and Eddie was sitting down at the piano and playing it by ear. That's
amazing, and I think most people know the story too about the fact that Eddie started out as a drummer. And Alex started out on guitar, and it was Alex who said, Ed, I think you're a better guitar player. We should just switch instruments.
Absolutely. And then, it's kind of funny that I just brought up Tris Mahaffey from my old bands, and we were in a band called Oasis when we were 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
And he did this Mahaffey guitar amp. He just idolized Eddie Van Halen, and he plays a lot like Eddie. And so he actually met Eddie that same day as well. And we had a band years ago. They're still going. I filled in for their lead vocalist position years ago for about a year and a half or so. And Tris has a band called Striker, Striker.
Okay.
And they're a big band here in Orange County playing original hard rock music and rock music called Striker. And years ago, when I was singing for Striker, we had a guy named Johnny Christ that was playing drums for us. Johnny's parents were in, Eddie's dad was a clarinet player and a musician. His dad was in a band with Eddie's dad and Alex's dad.
How cool is that? Wow, amazing.
And so we ripped Johnny Christ off from a Hollywood band called Hollywood Rose, and the singer of that band was Axl Rose.
Oh yeah, years ago. That's amazing.
A long time ago, man.
Yeah, let me ask you, being that you got your start in music in the church, were you ever a Striper fan? Did you follow them, and what did you think of them kind of doing their thing and bringing their Christianity into their music and that?
So I'm still a Christian, and even though I love my metal and my rock and roll, I have found that one of the things that has been kind of a bummer about per se religion and organized religion and people that judge other people, I am a Christian to this day, and I'm actually part of a vineyard church here in Laguna Beach called Network, so I'm actually a worship leader and have been there for 9 years of my life. And when Stepchild went through a breakup many years ago, 2 days after the band had broke up, and we had all these labels looking at Stepchild and hoping to get a major record deal. We had Warner Brothers, Interscope, DGC, which is basically the new Geffen Records, and everything fell apart. And it was a bummer for the guys in Stepchild. We were brokenhearted.
I bet,
the band broke up, and 2 days after the band broke up, I got a phone call from a guy named John Sutherland that was with a magazine, a free magazine back in the day in LA, and he wrote a column called Molten Metal in BAM magazine in Los Angeles.
I remember that, yeah, wow.
And I was living in, bouncing back and forth from Orange County to Hollywood for many years of my life. But anyhow, 2 days after Stepchild had went on a hiatus and a breakup after not getting signed, I got this call from John Sutherland 2 days after we broke up, and he had just done an interview with KK Downing, and Rob Halford had left Judas Priest.
Oh, wow.
And KK did this interview, this call with John Sutherland from BAM Magazine, and he said, hey, do you know any singers in LA that we're not looking for for a Rob clone. We're looking for somebody that's a powerhouse singer that had their own style and their whole thing. And John called me up and he's like, Kevin, I respect you, and you are one of my favorite singers, but he goes, for whatever reason, I just thought of you, and I told him about you, and they want you to call him. So I ended up going through a thing that was almost a 3-year period, and I beat out 1,000 people down to 10 guys for Judas Priest, and then out of the process down to 10 people, the gentleman and I'm so glad he got the gig because he deserved it. Yeah. He's actually a friend of mine, Tim Owens.
Oh wow, yeah.
Ripper Owens.
Wow.
That got the gig. He wasn't one of the 10. He came in when Scott Travis went back to the band, that got hired back and convinced back. He left with Rob Halford, and when Scott came back, he brought back this videotape of Tim singing in a band called British Steel, a tribute band to Priest, and he ended up getting the gig.
Oh, amazing!
So, I'm so sorry for such a long-winded answer, but 2 days after that phone call, I got a phone call from a guy named Todd Cashman from Cashman Entertainment.
Okay.
And the two brothers out of Stryper had gotten into some type of a tiff, and they had split apart, and Stryper decided that they were going to audition singers, and they were interested in having me come and audition. So I always tell that story kind of together, hand in hand, because as a Christian, it was just like, I got a call from Judas Priest, and 2 days later I got a call from Stryper. It was like,
that's really the two opposites of a pole, but that is totally cool. And I'm kind of glad that Stryper ended up breaking up for a while, because I think they realized that no matter how good of a singer you get, I just think Michael Sweet is so hard to replace.
Yeah, and the same thing with Rob Halford, but Tim Owens did a great job.
Oh, he nailed it. I mean, like you said, Rob Halford, you can't really picture who's going to replace him, but I think Tim Owens was the guy, and it would have been interesting to see what you would have been like in Judas Priest, but maybe it went to the right guy. Who knows? You just never know these things.
But thing is that I think I would have done a great job for Judas Priest on the mid-tone, and I had a great feeling and a vibe, because I basically started learning all of their songs. KK Downing did a album, producing it with a bunch of bands doing Priest songs. And Glenn did a solo album, and then Scott Travis had left with Halford, and they basically, that process that I went through with Priest, it was almost 2.5 years.
Wow, and here's the thing with that. I mean, first of all, even though you didn't get the gig, Kevin, it's a great story to be able to tell. And if anything, you can say you were a contender. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and what was really cool is the NAMM show that's at in Anaheim, California. A few years later, I was with a bunch of my bros and friends, a bunch of guys and girls, friends of mine, hanging out at the Hilton, having a beer in the bar, and I look across the room, there's KK Downing and Glenn Tipton, and I'm like, come on, you guys. So we walk up to them, and as God is my witness, they walk up, and Glenn pointed at me, he goes, is your name Kevin? I said, yeah. He goes, KK goes, in front of all my friends at the NAMM show, right? He's like, this guy almost sang for us, man. All my friends were like, whoa! And we ended up hanging out with Glenn and KK. They were the most humble, nicest people. And then they hooked me up, and they got me, like, when they came and played Irvine Meadows, and here in in my neck of the woods here, they got me like 20th row, looking at the kick drum, backstage passes. I mean, they were really good to me, and they're like, hey, we're sorry it didn't work out. And the last thing that I'll say about that, as far as Tim Owens getting the gig, is I started to tell you, I had a great mid-range. Like, I could sing those songs badass. I could sing the song badass. I mean, I know that sounds kind of like pompous, whatever, but I worked really hard for 2 years of my life to really work hard on them. I was ready to walk on stage with that band. Here's the thing that I didn't have, that high piercing note that Tim Owens can do all day long. I didn't have that. So because of that, I mean, there's no other person I know on the planet Earth that could have done what Tim Owens did to take Rob Halford's position. And I was happy to see Rob come back, and to join up, because, the real singer of a band is the real singer of a band. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like if somebody came in that kicked ass, that took over the lead singing job of Stepchild, right? I'm sure that there's literally thousands, if not millions, of great singers out there, right? But it's never the same when it's not the original singer.
I mean,
you know what
yeah,
I mean?
I mean,
That's why
yeah.
I agree with what you said about Stryper. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so how many of your friends can say that they were even considered for Judas Priest? So that's a pretty cool story to tell. And in regards to Stryper, like you said, that came close too. What was the point when they tell you, we think we're going to just kind of put the band on hold?
Well, so what happened is that this guy that was like not managing me, but Todd Cashman from Cashman Entertainment. What happened is that I sent some demos in that they had requested, and then what ended up happening is the brothers ended up making up, and they ended up not replacing the singer.
Yeah, that's kind of.
So they never gave me an audition, and you know what? I'm a little, you've heard my voice. I'm a little rough around the edges, and I have a harder edged voice, and I don't have. I mean, I had it years ago, that super high note, but Michael's voice in Stryper is so clear and so high, and so having somebody else trying to come in and do that, it just wasn't right. And then the other thing I'll say about Stryper is that God bless Oz Fox, he had brain surgery.
Oh yeah,
he's had some complications, and he's a buddy of mine. I ended up making friends with him years later. I ran into him at an old club that's not around anymore in Orange County in Anaheim called Jezebel's.
Oh, I heard.
And I walked up to him and I was like, Oz, I go, man, I almost auditioned for you guys. My name's Kevin Jones. He's like, no way. And we ended up hitting it off.
Wow.
And so I haven't seen him in years, but when I saw that he was having the surgery, I reached out to him and his wife. And so I've been praying for Oz.
Of course, yeah.
He seems like he's doing pretty good. And the last I heard that he is healthy and he's recovered and he's doing well. And he's a great guitar player and he's a really cool person.
And then the final thing I would say about talking about the Stryper situation, I mean, that's kind of situation when we a band with brothers, they have a love-hate thing, going. So
of course.
There's that. But now let's get back to your music. Next song I want to talk about that you sent me, really cool song. And you're telling me that you really this is your favorite one of these songs that you sent me. And I'd have to kind of agree. It's a great song. It's called The Void. To me, I listened to this, and I think I sent you an email last night. I was commenting on the fact, to me, it's kind of got a Sabbathy, kind of sludgy, Alice in Chains kind of vibe to it. And when I listen to it, the vocals sound a bit like a combination between Ronnie Dio and Ozzy Osbourne. Those are two singers sound nothing alike, but I don't know how you did it, but it's got that unique sound there.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. First of all, I take that as a compliment. I really appreciate it. And it ends up, what's kind of a trip is that, I've done 11 albums, and one of the albums that I did is with the band called Distilled Spirits. And that song, The Void, was with the band Distilled Spirits after I had done this one album that I did with them years back. And so Dave Johann, which is the main songwriter and the brilliant guitar player, producer, engineer of Distilled Spirits and the leader of Distilled Spirits, had reached out to me and wanted to do some work with me, and he sent me that track, and I actually recorded it on the fly, sent it back to him, and then he produced it. What's kind of a trip is, how we were just talking about Ripper Owens?
Yeah.
Well, Dave's brother, about 8 months ago, ran into, I think he went to a show, or I don't know what the story is, but he met Tim, and he said, hey, for my brother's birthday, if I threw you some cash, would you consider recording a couple of my brother's songs? So I will send you a version, or send you the link to it, Jason.
Okay.
But that song, The Void, there's a version out there with Tim Owens singing it.
Amazing. Wow.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's cool. That's a guy of that caliber singing your song, huh?
So that song, The Void, that I'm hoping that you add, when you put all this interview together,
of course,
and put it out there, if you add The Void to it, one of the things that I wrote about, the Void is about, the political takeover, like a one world government. A lot of the bizarre things that we're seeing happening on the planet. Now. I wrote this way before COVID and way before the pandemic.
Wow.
But, one of the things that I wrote about it, that song about The Void, is basically, governments taking over the freedom of people and taking away our rights, taking away our cash money, which it seems like, I hope that doesn't happen, but it kind of seems like that's where it's going. Yeah. So that's what the song The Void was written about when I wrote it. and I had shared with a lot of my close friends and different people that follow me and fans of mine and friends of mine and musician friends of mine. And I was like, that song is kind of my testimony of how I feel about the world and the takeover of taking away our freedom.
Oh yeah, and I don't know how you see. Yeah, I don't know how you see this, but like, I mean, it kind of gets me. Like just the other day, seeing the president of the United States go on national TV and kind of laughing, saying something to the effect of, "Well, yeah, you better go and get the vaccine because if the people aren't getting the vaccine, they're getting fired." They're kind of almost laughing about it. I'm like, wow, that's the first time you ever see a president of the United States laughing about people losing their job.
I think he is completely not mentally competent to be running
no
our
doubt.
country.
No
I
doubt.
believe that he is a puppet.
I
believe that he is a corrupt politician and always has been.
Yeah.
I think that he's the worst president that we've ever had.
No doubt.
In our history. And I think that the way that our freedoms are being stripped away from us every corner that we turn. And the thing is hey, I get it. The thing is that as far as if this was really a situation, here's how I feel about it, okay? If this was a situation where the coronavirus was wiping out, a big, huge percentage of our planet, of human beings, then I would not have the same view that I have at it. I have looking at it, right? And so here, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't claim to have all the answers, okay? I believe that they used this whole thing as a takeover of taking people's rights away from them. And I believe that is way more important than trying to save lives. Like, we're going to give you a vaccine and we're going to save you all. We're going to be the hero of the day. They're using this for a political motive to strip away the people's rights. And anybody out there that's listening to me that says that's bullshit and that they don't agree with me, you know what? In the United States of America, we have the greatest country that I love with all my heart, okay? With our freedom, right? Look what is going on all over the world. If you look what these people in Australia have done to their citizens over this coronavirus, it is absolute. It's just insanity. And I believe that if a person like myself, okay, a person that believes that they will make it through, and if they don't and they lose their life over it, that it should be their choice. We have all these people out in the world that will stand in the street corner screaming up and down that it's a woman's right to choose as far as abortion, and everybody has their own opinions of it. Well, if a woman has the right to choose if she's going to abort a 6-month-old baby, okay, which I believe is completely should be, I believe it's wrong, okay? The thing that I want to say is I've got an ambulance going by my house.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Where I live in Laguna, right off of the main street by the main beach, there's like a hill with houses, and it's almost like a valley. And so when the cops or the fire engines go by, it's like they're in my apartment with me. It's insane. Anyhow, what I was going to say is that I believe that if somebody has a religious belief or any belief as far as it being their body, I do not believe that there should be forced vaccinations anywhere. I think the thing that's going on with the vaccination passports, the whole thing of being, forcing people that may have it's my opinion, and some people would disagree with me, that the vaccine takes away your God-given immune system. And I believe more in the immune system that God gave me, and that should be my right as a human being, right? And the thing that's sad about it, in closing, is that with how far this has gone, with all of our rights being stripped away from us, now they're making it like with the vaccine passport, et cetera, et cetera. LA County just passed it where unless it's a pharmacy or grocery store, you have to have proof of vaccination to go into a restaurant or anywhere, right? And so I think that they've taken this actually way too far, and I think that they're taking the rights away from human beings. And for anybody that doesn't, agree with me, the thing is that I have an open mind and I have discussions with different people. I don't unfriend people or not be friends with
exactly,
anymore.
exactly.
But I feel, the need to be honest about this and to say how I feel about it. Because so many people are like sheep and they're like, okay, I'll just do whatever you tell me to do.
I'm with you, brother. I mean, I don't understand that. And just kind of to have people understand how crazy it is. You mentioned kind of, Anaheim during the interview. I just came from Anaheim today, where I work, and you can walk all over Orange County without a mask. You can go in places without a mask. There's only one Walmart over there that they want to be woke and make everybody wear a mask. But you can go anywhere in Orange County. But like you said, LA County, anywhere you go, you got to wear a mask and all this stuff. It's just down the road, basically.
Right, and they're saying, well, you know what? If you care about other people and you're not going to be selfish and you don't want to get other people sick, then you need to wear a mask and you need to get vaccines. Well, here's the problem with that, okay? First of all, if they ever watching the science, okay, when you wear, like, these poor people, like, I'm blessed by God. I get to, be here at my house, okay? And so the thing is that these poor people out in the world that are wearing masks 8 to 10 hours a day, sometimes 12 hours a day, your body needs oxygen, for one, in your bloodstream, right? And the other thing is that your immune system, when you wear a mask on your face for 12 hours a day, you compromise your immune system. One of the ways that God made our bodies was to be able to fight off diseases and to fight off viruses was our strength of our immune system. So when you have people that are that are vaccinated, okay, and they're freaking vaccinated and they're still wearing a mask, I see these people driving around in their cars by themselves with a mask on. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I know. And the thing that gets me, you mentioned, like, people having their rights taken away, and we have something called the Constitution. I kind of agree with you that, it kind of floors me when they first started having these mandates. The president gets on TV and he even says, I don't think that we can really legally do this, but we're going to do it anyways. I mean, and nobody even, wait a minute, what do you mean you can't do it, but you're going to do it,
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and I'm sure that you and I didn't really plan this out. We've never met before, never talked before, and I sure appreciate you having me on your show. Thank you so much for having me.
That's the beauty of this. Sometimes things come up, but it's all right. Like you said, I'm of the same mindset as you that not only do we think alike, but I think even I could talk to somebody that disagrees with me, and I think where me might be the same is I'll listen to somebody's opinion. I won't shut them down. I'll say maybe politely, I don't agree with you, but I'm not going to be like some of these people tell me, you're a bad person if you don't want to follow the mandates. You don't want to do what you're told. You're a bad person. You must be a racist.
I don't care I don't care whether you're a man, woman, Democrat, Republican, Christian, non-Christian, whatever. In the United States of America, to see what you just said on not just that, but on so many different levels, the things that are going on right in front of our eyes with our Constitution, they're being stripped away from us, like they're being peeled away and stripped away, and they're breaking the rules of how this is supposed to be a government that is for the people. I mean, and the thing is that we the way that everything was set up to be, the balance of it, I believe, is getting worse and worse and worse. And where, the freedom of speech has been completely stifled.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of just make that point and drive it home. I'll give you a funny story. The other day, I'm in a local Wells Fargo bank, and I'm waiting in line. And this lady, as she comes into the bank, she walks up to the security guard and tells him, I just want to let you know, sir, that everywhere I go, I wear my mask. And he kind of looked at her like, la-di-da, well, that's good for you, But that's where we are with this. And I want to ask you one more question we were talking about your song, The Void. I mentioned it's kind of sounding like a cross between Dio and Ozzy. And in your email last night, you said something to the fact that you were friends with both Ozzy and Ronnie, is that correct?
Yeah, so one of the first jobs I had when I was just a teenager, I worked at Tower Records in Lake Forest, which is about hop, skip, and a jump from Laguna, where I live now. It's about 10 minutes inland. And it used to be called El Toro. Now it's called Lake Forest. Okay. And I worked at Tower Records, and I was just a kid. And it was one of the first jobs I ever had in my life, and I was so stoked to have the job, right? Yeah, I bet. And Ronnie Dio was already one of my favorite singers, Rainbow. Like, my vocal influences from when I was a kid was like Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, and Rainbow, and the Beatles and the Stones and all that. But as far as like the hard rock, people that know me, I was in a band called Illusion, which we got back together. That's another band that I have going on now that got back together. That was together in high school, in my high school years when I was just a kid. anyhow, I sang a lot. I grew up learning how to sing rock and roll, singing Ozzy, and then I sang like "Man on the Silver Mountain" and some other Rainbow songs. So Ronnie James Dio and Ozzy were huge influences for me. So I was working as a kid, and my boss came to me. Our manager came. We had a little meeting at work. And it's like, hey, we're having Ronnie James Dio come to the store and do an autograph signing.
Oh, wow.
And he's releasing a new solo album, which was Holy Diver.
Amazing.
So I was freaking out, bro. Just freaking, right?
Yeah.
And I've never met the guy. I was just a kid, you know.
Yeah.
So he came to the store and we had the autograph signing. And that, you know, right now, you know, Tower Records obviously went out of business. Now it's called Guitar Center over there. But it's at that same location. It was a huge store, right?
Wow.
So when the autograph signing and the meet and greet was over, we physically shut our store down and closed the doors, and we had a party for them, and we had like a 12-foot long sub sandwich, and we had like chips and food, and we had like beer and wine and soda and water, you know, and we had a little party for them. And I was completely just like blown away. I couldn't believe that I was hanging out with Ronnie James Dio, one of my favorite singers.
That's cool.
And so we were all, we all got to invite one friend, and I was dating a girl, and I invited her, and we were in the back room, and we were eating the sandwich and stuff, and I was actually sitting on a couch next to Ronnie Dio. And the girl that I was dating at the time says, Ronnie, you should hear Kevin sing you. You're his favorite singer. And I just went, oh, my God, she didn't just say that, right? He's like, really? He goes, let me hear something, Kevin. Well, I had only been working at that job for a few months, and, like, none of the people that I worked with had ever seen me play or anything, you know. And I was young, you know. And everybody's like, come on, Kevin, come on, you know. And I was like, it was one of those moments where it was just like, you got to grab your cojones and either just, you know, you're either going to like punk out or you're either going to freaking man up and just go for it, right?
Wow.
So I stood up and I closed my eyes. I clenched my right fist, which I do when I sing. When those that know me, like when I'm punching a note out, I kind of clench my right fist, you know? I stood up and I a cappella sang Stargazer by Rainbow.
Amazing.
I sang about half of it. Yeah. Ronnie jumped up and freaking gave me a hug and said, you sing me better than me, man. That was amazing. And that was the start of a friendship that I was friends with Ronnie all the way until when he passed.
Oh, wow.
He was going to the album that I recorded in Seattle, Hope Has Its Reason, that we were just talking about. Yeah. He had considered actually producing that album for me, and he like had heard the scratch tracks, and he's like, I can hear some keyboard parts, because he was the guy laying all the keyboard, most of the keyboard parts, some of the keyboard parts, and especially the solo stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And then with Ozzy was my biggest influence as a young boy, teenager singing, and I sang about 13, 14, Illusion did like 13 or 14 Sabbath songs, and even a couple of his solo songs. And when I lived up in Hollywood, I used to always hang out at a place called the Rainbow. One night I walked in and he was there, and I ended up singing for him. It sounds like I like pushed myself on it. It's a weird thing. And so a girl that worked there as a waitress introduced me to him, and I said, hey, you know, I grew up singing. I learned how to singing you. And he's like, well, look, sing me something, you know, sing me one of my songs. So I sang Tomorrow's Dream for Ozzy.
Oh, wow.
And that was roughly around 8 o'clock at night, and the Rainbow closes at 2 a.m. We left, Ozzy and I and some of his friends and my friends left the Rainbow the next morning at like 6:30. I partied and sang with Ozzy. I partied and drank and ate food and hung out and listened to music and told stories and laughed till 6:30 the next morning. And so Ozzy is a friend of mine, and Ronnie, God bless his heart, you know, rest in peace, Ronnie James Dio, and God bless Ozzy.
Yeah, that's a great story. Wow. Okay, then the next song I want to talk about is a song "Fallen." Now, my notes here I put it's a great heavy kind of groove. I just really love the song. I mean, that's kind of what I picked up on that song. It's got like just a great groove.
What song was this?
"Fallen."
Oh man, I didn't even know that I had sent that over to you.
well, yeah, but it's great. Yeah.
"Fallen" wow, you kind of took me back because I didn't realize that I had sent that over to you.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a great song to my ears, so thank you for sending it, yeah.
so "Fallen" is actually my bass player, Danny DeYoung, and a guy named Pete Tomarzo and a drummer named KJ Hunter. We had a little side thing called WAD, and so I don't want to give away too much because there's some changes coming down the road.
Okay.
That's one of the new songs that's going to be coming out on the new Stepchild album, and it's not going to be that version that I sent you. So it'd probably be better if you didn't.
No, I'm not going to post that. Yeah, I'm not going to post that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask about it because, again, just to my ears listening to it, I really dug that song. And then
how cool!
And
so
then,
if you like the music and the heaviness to it, that's kind of the new direction that Stepchild is going in.
Yeah, and just to let people know listening to this, because Kevin, the interview's coming out really great. It's kind of been all over the place, but that's what makes it kind of cool. It makes it cool because the whole thing we want to do with today's interview is kind of focus on these songs that you sent me to listen to last night, and just kind because really when people listen to Kevin's music, there's kind of a diversity to. I mean, he can do like a great ballad like Evening Falls and something kind of Sabbathy like The Void. Totally different ends of the spectrum, and that's kind of why I want to highlight these songs. Next time when we interview you down the line, maybe we can really get into talking about your band Stepchild, but we're kind of just highlighting some of his songs today. And so next one I want to talk about is Alone at Night, and this to me had kind of a heavy hypnotic sound, great kind of melody throughout the song.
So Alone at Night is one of my favorite songs that we have in Stepchild, and Stepchild's leader, his name was Scott Griffith, that wrote those guitar parts.
Okay.
And Alone at Night is just, I think it's my favorite Stepchild song out of all of them.
Okay.
And so our leader of Stepchild and my best friend, or one of my best friends in my teenage years, we even had like a little band together when we were in high school called Mysticy, and that is Scott Griffith, and he was the main writer. And Scott, after the band had broken up, took a job offer in Rhode Island, and Stepchild used to do a lot of shows with our friends in the band Great White, Jack Russell and Great White.
Wow.
So Scott had taken a job offer and moved to Rhode Island with his daughter Casey, and he was invited by the band to go see them play at the station, and that was the gig where the place went up in flames and Scott Griffith lost his life.
Oh, sad! Wow.
So one of my best friends and my mentor and my songwriter and my main guitar player from Stepchild, Scott Griffith, passed away in the nightclub station fire.
I'm sorry to hear that. Wow, I had no idea even before doing the interview. That's amazing. What a tragic story there. Sorry for you.
What happened is that Casey's mom, Lori, lived here in California, and so they flew Casey back home, and we had a memorial and a funeral for Scott, and we had like a jam session thing with a bunch of Scott's old bands, and what ended up happening is that when we got back together, we decided to do a couple gigs to raise some money for Casey while we were waiting for her to get her life insurance money from Scott's life insurance policy, which God bless him for doing that. That's amazing that he did that for her.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening is that after we started doing a couple shows in tribute and a memorial of him, we realized, Scott would really want us to keep going, and these songs, these songs are worthy. The people that really, the diehard Stepchild fans that really love the songs, and I'm one of them. I just absolutely love the songs. I'm proud of them. They're great enough songs, just like you just brought up Alone at Night. Great bands like Black Sabbath, the great music of the world, whether it's the Beatles, whether it's current, whether it's like from 50 years ago or whether it's from a week ago, a great song is a great song. That's why the songs of Zeppelin and AC/DC and Black Sabbath and Soundgarden.
It's timeless. It's timeless.
Great music is timeless, and that's why there were some people out there, and there still are. They're like, with Scott not being around, you really should not be playing his songs.
So did you kind of take over the singer once he passed away, or was there two singers in the band?
Oh, no, I was always the singer of Stepchild.
Okay.
Yeah, so the thing is that the way that I looked at it is that, I can't help it that my co-writer and my best friend and the leader of our band passed away, and I was very close to him, and he would have wanted us to carry on, and so we ended up putting the band back together after Scott had passed away. And there's been many member changes, but I've always been the main member of the band, the singer of the band, and so Stepchild is still together. We're doing a new album right now. We're building a new recording studio as we speak that we're going to be moving into In about 3 weeks, we're going to be writing new songs, recording new songs. We're booking shows for 2022, and we'll be out roughly in March of 2022, either playing lots of shows or going on tour. And there will be a new website. Our website right now is reverbnation.com, Stepchild, the number 6. There's reverbnation.com, Kevin Jones. There's Reverb Nation Distilled Spirits. You can find Facebook under Kevin Jones and Stepchild and Distilled Spirits and my band Illusion. And then also, you can go to YouTube and punch in Kevin Jones Rocks, KevinJonesRocks, and that has, like, I'm also in another band called Rattleface that just finished.
You're all over the place, but that's cool. Yeah, I dig that.
Yeah, so there's about 40 or 50 videos. Most of them are very simplistic, just a song with maybe a little slideshow, nothing to write home about, professional really. But I have about 50 songs on that YouTube channel, and I just definitely want to push that Stepchild is recording new songs, writing new songs, and then we will be coming out with a brand new website, t-shirts, hats, and we'll be touring all over the place in 2022.
That's great to hear, Kevin. Now, before we wrap it up, I have just a few more questions. You mentioned the band Great White. I was curious, how far back do you go with Great White, even as a fan? Because what I was asking is, I was kind of interested in what your thoughts on, like, if you go back to when Great White put out, like, their first album, they were much more of a kind of even a full-blown metal band, and they turned into more of a bluesy band. What did you think about that?
Well, Jack Russell, so you know how Great White split into two bands.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, the real Great White is always, it has to be Jack Russell.
Oh, I'm with you.
And I mean that in all due respect. I'm not, like, getting in the middle,
No, I hear you.
I'm just saying my opinion, which, that's my opinion, right?
Yeah, I asked for it. Yeah.
And so Jack and Robbie Lochner, his guitar player that ended up getting the gig with Jack, Robbie Lochner is an old friend of mine. And the thing is that when Jack Russell's from down this way, LA County and Orange County. I want to say
Huntington Beach, I think, or something like that. Redondo Beach. Redondo Beach.
I think it's Redondo Beach, right?
Yeah, Redondo.
So he was in a band called August Red Moon, and the first time I saw Jack sing, he came and sang at Mission Viejo High School, and his band did a concert, and he was in a band called August Red Moon, and he could sing freaking Robert Plant. Robert Plant is Jack's biggest influence, right?
Yeah.
Well, back in the day, even before Great White, Jack Russell could sing like a bird, like freaking Robert Plant, just nailing it, right?
Well, let me tell you, Kevin, real quick, if you're at all a Jack Russell fan, I urge you to get his new Led Zeppelin tribute CD. I mean, that whole band kills it on that.
One of my best friends is playing keyboards on it and singing on it, Michael Oliveri.
Oh, wow.
Formerly with the band Leatherwolf. And they're very close friends. And then Robbie Lochner, the guitar player for Jack Russell's Great White, is a really dear close friend of mine. And Jack and I, we don't really talk much. I don't really talk to him that much.
No.
We were never that close, but we were more acquaintances, and we used to do a lot of shows together.
Yeah.
He came to a gig when Scott was still alive. We played at the Orange County Fairgrounds. Stepchild played, and Jack came out and finished our last song of the night. He did Sin City by AC/DC with Stepchild. I stepped off and handed him the mic, and we have footage of Jack singing with us. And so I believe that Jack Russell is one of the great rock singers ever.
I'm with you, and not to really take sides, but even just as a fan, I'm kind of with you that to me, Jack Russell is the voice of Great White. He's the one that wrote all those songs.
Of course, yeah.
And then the other thing with it is, like, I talked to Jack. I had the opportunity to interview him twice. Super nice guy, super friendly. Never met him face to face. Talked to him over the phone twice. And he even told me both times, hey, man, anytime you want to interview me, you got my number. Feel free to reach out. Super cool dude. Down to earth. Never met him. But I felt like he was one of my best friends. That's how cool a guy he is. On the other hand, I tried to reach out to the other band and get an interview. Well, how many hits does your website get? And then I'm also turned off by some of the stuff they feel the need to constantly, like, trash, Jack. Like Mark Kendall said recently, something to the effect that I was never very impressed with Jack's, vocal. I'm like, come on, dude,
That's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
Mark Kendall, no one would know who Mark Kendall is if it wasn't for Jack Russell.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's great guitar players, and yeah, there are the virtuoso solo guitar players, the Joe Satriani's, the Yngwie Malmsteens, you know, the Steve Vai's of the world, right?
Yeah.
But Mark, if it wasn't for Jack Russell, no one would know who Mark Endel is. We wouldn't even know. We wouldn't even know his name. We'd be like, yeah, that dude that played guitar in that band.
See, not really to take sides, but I'm with you there, and my whole thing is okay. You know, if there's going to be two great whites, that's great. Each do your own thing, but why do you feel the need to kind of trash the guy that gave you your break, you know?
Right, and so here's the difference. When Jack Russell goes on stage, he's singing his own songs.
Exactly.
When the other band goes on stage, they have another guy singing Jack's songs. That pretty much, I rest my case.
Yeah, and let's be honest. Even if they put out new music and it's halfway decent, let's be honest. What are they playing at the live show? When what like you said, what does everybody want to hear? Those old Jack Russell tunes, you know?
Right, so they're just milking that cow.
Yeah,
you know, and that's the thing, is that, you know, if you say, well, you know, Robert Plant and Jimmy Page got in a fight, so now there's two Led Zeppelins, or now there's two Rolling Stones, or now there's two Beatles, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's not, you know, in certain things where it's a different situation. But see, the thing is like, here's a perfect example, okay? KK Downing from Judas Priest, yes, KK's Priest, right? Well, you know what? Yeah, he's playing some Priest songs, you know, but he's not out just playing as like a Judas Priest band. He just came out with a new album with new material. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and see, and so, I got that. It's a cool album, and I was going to say, it's almost kind of come full circle. You're talking about your little experience auditioning for Judas Priest. Well, Tim and KK are back, and they're doing their own thing, and I hear people kind of complain, hey, it sounds like Priest. What did you expect? You know, I can imagine if KK came out and said, I'm going to do a blues album or a rap album, you know? Come on.
Yeah, KK Downing should still be in Judas Priest, and so for him to carry on with his career,
more power
to play, and the thing is that, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's phenomenal, you know, that Rob came back to Judas Priest, but God bless KK Downing. Like, what did they want him to do? Retire and not play anymore, and sit in his apartment and you know, drink beer and watch TV?
I guess so.
And cry over it. Yeah. You know, he's a stand-up guy. He's a phenomenal guitar player. He's also very humble and really kind person, and he also has Tim Owens singing for him that was in Judas Priest. So there's room, you know,
for everybody.
Yeah. And having said that, you know, I feel a little like, because I'm not trying to ditch like Audie and like, you know, I don't want to ditch on any of the other bands and all that.
No.
But the thing is that I think that if there is going to be a split where there's like a Great White and Jack Russell's Great White, or a KK's Priest and a Judas Priest, it's like, you know what, there's room for everybody.
Exactly.
So that's really what I probably should have said. I'm kind of backstepping right now.
No, that's all right.
I'm just being honest. The thing is that, you know what, music is the great healer of the world. If you look at politics, if you look at like whatever it is in the world, you know, we have this musical family, this metal family, this rock and roll family, and just a musical family. And music is the great safe, you know.
Music is the thing that really brings people together.
It's the great communicator.
It really is. I mean, and you.
So there's room for everybody, man. Everybody, you know, just wants to express themselves and be on stage and play. And so, you know, I got nothing bad to say about any of the bands.
No.
And if they want to split up,
that's their right,
you know,
to do that.
If it was me, okay, what I would probably do is I would probably go with a completely new direction, with a completely you know, new name, and I would honor, like, since there's a Jack Russell's Great White and he's playing those songs, if I was Mark Kendall and those guys, I would probably go with a completely new direction. You know, but
that's just your.
Everybody has their own opinion, right?
Yeah. And you know, talk about being a communicator with your music. You know, obviously you are being a songwriter. What's that like when you have somebody, you know, buy one of your CDs or come up to you after a show and say, "Man, I just dug this particular song, or this is what it means to me," and you may be thinking to yourself, "Oh, wow, that's not even what I wrote the song about." But man, if you got that out of it, good for you.
That's what I think is the most beautiful thing about music, is that you have the interpretation of the artist. And I've always looked at like being a musician when I sing or when I play my guitar, and that's one of the things that takes away from like people, you see people like post up on whatever, Facebook or whatever, and they'll list like all these players, and they're like, who's the best player, who's the best guitar player out of Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, Tony Iommi, et cetera, right? Well, the thing is that I look at music kind of like this. Everybody is their own artist. You get your canvas out, right? You get your paintbrush, your colors out, and you paint your picture, right? And so, like, some people might listen to Kevin Jones sing and not dig my voice at all. Think I'm raspy or too heavy-edged or whatever, right? But some people might go, hey, some people come up to you like, dude, you're one of my favorite singers. When somebody comes up to you with all the years I've been doing this, and they're like, hey, you're one of my favorite singers, and I think you're a great singer, man, that makes you, of course, it's this ego stroke, right? But deeper than the ego stroke, when it's something real genuine and somebody that really respects you as an artist, it comes back to what I just said, is that I feel like the different musicians in the world, whether it's a blues artist, a jazz artist, a world music, a pop artist, a metal artist, whatever, we're all just trying to be creative and release what we have inside of our souls artistically, right? And so that's the most beautiful thing about music, is that I really feel that music is definitely an art form, and everybody paints their own picture. And that's the thing, is that if you listen to somebody or hear something that you don't dig, you turn the station, or you put something on that you love. And that's the most beautiful thing about music. There's something for a 2-year-old, there's something from a 9-year-old, there's there's something for people that dig hard metal. I'm more into like, I'm not into like thrash metal or death metal. I hear you. I'm into more commercial, straightforward hard rock and metal, kind of like the things that you mentioned, the Alice in Chains, the Sabbath, the Rainbow, the this, that, and the other, and that's the beautiful thing about music, is that there's something for everyone.
And isn't it interesting, like, I listened to a song like The Void, and without even you kind of telling me anything about it, just with my own ears listening to it, I'm like, that sounds, I don't know what it is, I hear like a Dio and an Ozzy influence, and kind of you tell me that story about Ozzy and Ronnie, and I think, oh man, it's so easy, I picked that up right away in that song. It's amazing. And I hadn't even talked to you about it yet. And you said about working at Tower Records, I got to say, Kevin, that was the last great record store, man, I used to spend hours in there just going through music. Kids today don't know what that experience was like,
Yeah, it's interesting that, like, when people hear my voice, a lot of people will come up and they'll say, or like say, they make a comment like on one of my videos or a post, right? And so when people hear me sing, they always bring up Axl Rose, and they always bring up Ozzy, and they always bring up Dio, and sometimes they'll bring up like Graham Bonnet, sometimes they'll bring up Ian Gillan, and like, these are the people that I learned how to sing music with, was singing around those type of people. And then the other band, you remember the band Three Dog Night? Well, Three Dog Night, Chuck Negron was one of my biggest influences. Like, the first album that I ever bought with my allowance was the Three Dog Night album. And I literally learned, like Joy to the World, Jeremiah was a bullfrog. And, all those Eli's that come in and one, and Just an Old-Fashioned Love Song, and all those old Three Dog Night hits. I learned how to sing to like Three Dog Night. And then Machine Head from Deep Purple came out, and I was like completely into that when I was just a little kid. I have an older brother named Michael that's 5 years older than me, so I kind of had a jump start on a lot of music that he turned me on to. Everything from Deep Purple to Bowie to King Crimson to Cat Stevens to a lot of different genres and a lot of different types of music. And so my whole upbringing, like, especially with rock and roll, really started not only like with the Beatles and the Stones, but as the Deep Purple came out and then morphed into, the Black Sabbath of the world and the Judas Priest of the world. That's like where I came from. And so it's kind of cool when people hear me sing and they're like, you remind me of Ozzy, you remind me of Ronnie, you remind me of Axl, because that's like that's where I come from. That's
where you come from, and you've definitely been delivering the goods, and it's kind of interesting. You're not even really telling people; they're telling you, "Hey, you sound like these guys that influenced you." I really kind of, dig that. And you mentioned Deep Purple, and I got to say that you ask people, "What's your favorite Deep Purple album?" and you're going to typically get one of two answers. Like, it's either Machine Head or Burn. And that's such a hard one for me, but I lean a little more towards Burn, maybe just because of my age, and when you stop and realize that, hey, wait a minute, that was David Coverdale from Whitesnake before there was ever a Whitesnake, and Glenn Hughes. And I just love those two guys, their voice together. And when you consider the fact that Ian Gillan's left, you think Deep Purple's going to fall apart, but they went on to and they remained successful.
Absolutely, and I've been so blessed in my life that I've got to meet a lot of my heroes.
Wow.
And I went to a rock and roll fantasy camp at the old Hollywood House of Blues before they ripped it down. And my friend David Fishoff, that put together the rock and roll fantasy camp, let me come, and I went to this gig. It was Mickey Dolenz from the guest there was Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees. I got to meet him. He was freaking so cool. I got to meet Glenn Hughes, which is like a dream of mine.
Oh my God!
The drummer of Pink Floyd and a bunch of other people. And then now, Glenn is playing with one of my friends that I've been friends with forever, one of the best guitar players on the planet, Doug Aldridge.
Wow.
And they have a band called Dead Daisies.
Killer
Glenn
band.
Hughes,
Yeah.
I gotta say, man, I'm so glad you mentioned Glenn's name, because I've dropped, Ian Gillan and Ozzy, and I'm glad you brought up Coverdale. But I have to say, man, Glenn Hughes is like the most badass singer ever.
And I gotta
He's
say, Glenn Hughes. Anybody hasn't checked out the Dead Daisies album with him? It's called Holy Ground. Go and get it. I mean, I think even with the Dead Daisies, Glenn has totally reinvented himself. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of the previous singer, John Corabi. And I thought, who the hell are they going to get to take John Corabi's place? And Glenn is such a huge talent that he ended up replacing two guys in that band. They got Glenn to replace the bass player and John Corabi on vocals. What
you talked about getting a freaking all-star deal, and Doug Aldridge is one of the best in the world, and he's such a humble, phenomenal guitar player. I've been friends with him for a long time, and I was stoked to see him get that gig, and for Doug to be playing guitar, which Doug played with Dio, and he played with a lot of people.
Coverdale.
And Glenn Hughes is just such a monster bass player, monster singer. He's so soulful. His voice soars forever. And, he's been doing it a long time. And that thing is like, you just brought up Machine Head and you brought up Burn. The thing is that you already had in Burn, you already had David freaking Coverdale as a young man just kicking ass.
David.
And then you throw Glenn Hughes on top of it. So you put Glenn Hughes and David Coverdale together. That is just ridiculous.
And I'll tell you what I love about David Coverdale's story. I heard him talk about this in an interview. I mean, first of all, not only is he the guy who replaces Ian Gillan in Deep Purple, but at the time he's this totally unknown 21-year-old kid from England that nobody's ever heard of before. And he tells a story that he got the gig on his 21st birthday.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I heard him talk about. I mean, what a birthday present! Could you imagine? And
absolutely.
And Glenn Hughes, just like you said, what a huge talent. And I don't know if you know anything about the Dead Daisies. The other guitar player, David Lowery, the band kind of centers around him, and he's got this revolving cast of people coming in and out of the band. And it's very much like Whitesnake. Doesn't seem to really affect it, that you have a different lead singer. But I love that band.
I mean, I really think that they've got a firm lineup at this point, and I don't think that they've changed members lately.
No, not for about 5 years, but I think
they've got a really firm lineup right now, and I've seen some of their, I don't know if they're still on tour, but they've been touring these last couple of months, and I've seen some of the footage, and it's just absolutely amazing. Yeah,
it's a killer band, and I won't keep you much longer, Kevin. The last thing I wanted to ask you about, because I said I want to be sure to cover all these songs you sent me. The last one is Fallen, and my notes on this is a great kind of heavy, or no, not Fallen, excuse me, a better place, which I just put. It's a really kind of nice acoustic track. It's kind of an easy, real kind of cool acoustic track to listen to, and like I was talking about diversity, this kind of just shows another side of what you do.
Yeah, so that's the newest. I think that's safe to say that's probably the newest thing. I've got a little home recording studio here at my place, and about a couple years ago, about 2 years ago, I met somebody out at a club. Her name is Angeline Johnson, and she's a friend of mine, and she was saying that she was a lyricist, not a lyricist. She wrote poetry.
Okay.
And so we ended up over at my pad. Where I'm at in the apartment that I'm in now. I used to live in a house across the street a couple years back, and now I'm here. But anyhow, she came over to my studio, And I said, well, I'd love to read some of your stuff. And so she started showing me. She had some copies of some of the stuff that she had written in her cell phone, and I started reading it, and I was like, oh my God, this is just absolutely amazing. And so I said, has anybody ever tried to put your words to music? And she said, no, it's like a dream of mine. So what happened is that recording that you
heard.
That I sent to you, that was on the spot that same night. So I took that guitar part that I just wrote off the cuff, and I wrote these. She wrote the words out on the spot. So those lyrics weren't in her phone. I said, let's just try to write a song together. So she wrote like 3 pages of lyrics out, literally in like 10 minutes. I grabbed my guitar, I hit record, I laid the guitar part, then I laid the vocal part, then I laid another guitar part, then I laid another guitar part, and that's what you're hearing. Oh, and then I did a lead. So I did 2 rhythms, 1 lead, 2 vocals, and that's basically a demo that I sent you. And that was done about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And everybody that hears it really thinks that it's a cool song. And so A Better Place was lyrically written by her and musically played by me and written with her and me on the spot. And I think it's a really cool song.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a potential single. I could see it being like a radio hit for you. But I want to thank you for doing the interview today, Kevin. It was really great getting to know you and talking to you. If you could hold on for just a minute, I just want to ask you something real quick. Let me just stop the tape.